You're listening to the Walking Dead Enthusiasts Podcast. Your hosts, Sebastian Kubanucci.
I thought I had to take a really big dump after eating tacos, and I got up, and there was a baby in my toilet.
Dennis Patrick.
I wouldn't miss my family in the zombie apocalypse, but I would be concerned about the future of Taco Bell.
And Ryan Smith.
You can put ketchup on your skitty all you want, but you can't date no child molestator. Welcome to the Walking Dead Enthusiast Podcast by Fandom. I'm Sebastian.
And I'm John.
Today we're talking about episode 902 of The Walking Dead, entitled The Bridge. I'm still in Fear the Walking Dead mode, so I constantly stumble over that intro. But welcome. Glad to have you here, John, this evening.
I'm off the bench.
You're off the bench. Episode 2 already. You're already off the bench. So Ryan had a conflict. I think Dennis also had a conflict. So we said, fuck it. We're going to record anyway. And John came up to the big leagues,
That's right. Do it live.
Yep. We're actually not live tonight. I can't Ryan figures out all the technological things with the live thing. So we're just doing our standard recording this evening, which, just works out fine between the two of us. It makes life a little bit easier. So,
right.
But whatever. So interested to get your opinion tonight about The Walking Dead so far. I mean, we're only 2 episodes in, and I'm already pretty pleased as to where it's been going for these first 2 episodes, and I feel pretty strong about it. Where's your head at?
Yeah,
with first episode and this one.
I'm up to my earlobes and paranoia because I've been here before.
This feels familiar,
right? It seems to me I was singing this same tune a show ago.
I think you're right.
And they led strong, and they're leading with things that, at least for me, are identified strengths of the universe. Both shows, where this is a real-world concern.
Mm-hmm.
This is crumbling infrastructure that is causing spidering out effects across all communities, and now they have to rally together to address them. Because if they don't, it's a life-or-death situation.
Sure.
For them, and the fear, the strength of that show is when it's wrapped around real world concerns, and I think hat tip to our creative team here. They seem to have abandoned at least for the time being, the zombie superhero sort of trope of this, and what happens if a bridge is out? Oh yeah, there's actually a lot of drama associated with that, huh? Yeah, let's do that.
Mm-hmm. What happens when you try to merge 4 groups into one mega group? There's a lot of drama that goes on there too. So let's focus on that.
Right. Exactly. There's a ton of real human dynamic that has to play there, where it plays on xenophobia, it plays on themes of the other, and Rick's desire for unity and his forward-thinking vision. That could be 10, however many years in the future. You're going to have resistance to it now, even though objectively and on paper it is absolutely the better way to go. Right? Me. Larger group together. Interconnected places trade together, succeed as a whole community or state or
sure.
What have you. I think better than try to do it on your own. But right now a lot of people can't see that.
Yeah, and I think where the conflict arises is when people have different kind of viewpoints on how things should be handled and how things should be done, and that's where I could kind of respect the perspective of Michonne coming into this episode saying, we need to establish common laws that everyone's going to abide by, because we can't have Maggie executing people, Rick throwing people in cells, Carol doing whatever Carol does. You know what I mean? Daryl beating people up. We really need to be handling these situations in a common way, just so, the Saviors don't feel like they're being attacked, or the Hilltop fears for their lives, but for Maggie. So, I thought that's a kind of nice element in this episode as well.
No, you're 100% right. And it's like Rick is a very forward-thinking concern, because to establish order and move on from the period of, well, you did something I don't like and there are no laws anymore because the world has ended. I'm going to shoot you in the face and there's no governing body to say boo about it.
Sure. I even thought that was kind of like an interesting perspective in this episode too with Tammy. She made like a comment in this episode. I forgot like what exactly she said. And she was like something about like, I still have rights. And I was just like,
yeah.
I was like, that's such like an interesting statement because like look at it from the perspective of this world and you're like, do you really? I don't
right.
like,
well, right.
There are no established laws. No one's protecting your rights as a human being in this world anymore. So it's like you kind of don't really have rights if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the transition from, okay, the world has ended, and they touch on this in the show as well, in this episode. Well, the world has ended, but it's not still ending. It's now they're beginning again. So if you're going to have a beginning, you have to have those underpinnings. You have to have, well, do we have rights? Or what are the laws that everybody agrees on? And they're kind of starting again, and in a way that's from like world building, from like statesmanship and sort of country building. That's an interesting component to me, like a group getting together and said, I think it was like an episode ago, the 901, not a constitution, no, not a constitution. We're not going to what's before. We're going ahead.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I feel like if you're going to do that, you need to have like representative members of each faction coming together to agree upon. But it's kind of interesting because I don't really feel like the Saviors have that representation anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It seems in a way that Rick has just put someone in place to oversee them, which I could see maybe why, that doesn't work for them too well. It's kind of interesting to me that they haven't brought Dwight back in. That it works in the comics because Dwight is that person, and Dwight was a savior, so he understands them. He understands the complexities of their society and the issues that they have on a daily basis. Now you plop someone like Daryl into that role where he's basically been a feral animal for the last 3 seasons, grunting and moaning and doing whatever Daryl does. A person that was a prisoner of the Saviors, like, I don't know, that doesn't really work for them.
No, and the Saviors are disenfranchised. That's what they are. If you think about history lesson, so like World War II when Japan's defeated and MacArthur is there, and he brings in Hirohito, who was the emperor of Japan at the time, and he brought him onto the ship for the signing of the surrender. They didn't kill him, they didn't execute him. He stayed there, but MacArthur was in charge and the de facto ruler of Japan during the occupation of the rebuild. When they have a constitution where they're not allowed to have a military, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. The Saviors in a way are sort of like that personification of like a headless governing body, an emperor with no power. And what does that do to a society that was warlike to a T? Like they didn't do anything else. They didn't produce anything. They didn't. I mean, Daryl said it like, nothing grows here, man. It's a factory.
Yeah.
Like what do you think? What do you think we're gonna do? Start producing turnips? Like it doesn't do shit. The reason why Negan had that in place and that everybody else tithes to the sanctuary is because the sanctuary didn't make a damn thing. They had a protection racket.
Sure.
So I think it's super interesting thematically and kind of metaphorically to think about them as like a conquered nation in war, and how do you change the hearts and minds of the populace? How do you turn yourself from a conqueror, somebody who defeated you, into, well, no, I'm here to help you now.
Yeah. Right? I mean, I don't know if they're necessarily doing a very good job at that.
No, I don't think they are either.
No, yeah, I mean, because even Al in this episode says, oh, you're going to, they're going to work for you and you're going to offer them protection. Who does that sound like? So
right.
Rick's not even doing like that great of a job trying to, I don't know, make the Saviors. I don't even know if at this point he's trying to make them feel equal. He's just like, you exist because I allow you to exist.
Yeah, because the alternative is to preserve the old way, and he's trying to set an example for kind of a new world.
Yep.
I
totally agree.
As painful as that is, I mean, listen, I'd much rather just shoot them all and move on myself. But Got to start somewhere.
Me too. I agree. But can't do that, unfortunately. I don't know. We obviously get this throughout this episode, even throughout the last episode, too, of how different people are handling different situations. I don't know. I even feel like Rick is a little bit wishy-washy in terms of how he decides to handle situations. Like, look at him exiling Justin at the end of this episode. And it's just like, I don't know. It's kind of strange that, he takes Negan and he'll imprison Negan, but Justin gets thrown out on his ass. It kind of seems like a weird. And then he has a problem with Maggie. Well, he doesn't ever say he has a problem with Maggie executing Gabriel. Not Gabriel. Gregory.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It even seems like he's not fully committed to one way of doing things either.
Well, I mean, but he doesn't. He banishes him. He sends him home from school, basically. I mean, he sends him away from the camp. Just
he says, "Oh, you think he was just sent him back to the sanctuary?"
Yeah, I think he was just going to the sanctuary.
Oh, I thought he exiled him, get the fuck out of here, and if I ever see your face again, I will essentially kill you.
No, I think it was. Well, I think that's the line delivered was here. See your face here. So I think it was more to the camp and the rebuild. I think it would be a much bigger, because if he's going to exile him from the sanctuary, then he's got to tell Maggie or Daryl, hey, this dude isn't allowed in anymore, and then he's got to tell everybody else, and we don't actually see any of that happen. So I think it was, I think it was much more man, get the fuck out of here before I carve you up.
Okay, all right. So that's interesting, because I took it I don't want to see you ever, period. Anywhere.
He's not carrying anything with him, Yeah.
Well, he had a bottle of booze and I guess it makes sense why he was willing to leave in the middle of the night. I thought it was kind of strange. I was like, if you're being exiled, you'd probably want to leave in the morning during the daylight when you're not going to get attacked by walkers. But, I don't know. Okay, so that makes way more sense. So in terms of me just being super pleased so far this season, I've really liked, and it's really frustrating because coming off of Fear the Walking Dead, where I feel like they've essentially taken all the worst parts of The Walking Dead and put it into Fear, and now The Walking Dead is starting anew. I'm starting to have a little paranoia that this was them fucking up Fear the Walking Dead is a desperate attempt at them getting viewers of The Walking Dead. I don't know if you remotely agree, but it's I feel like they do this, they flip flop. The Walking Dead will end real shitty, and they're like, guys, it's okay. We have Fear the Walking Dead, and that's a good show. And so everyone watches Fear, and they're like, oh yeah, this is a good show. Then Fear ends shitty, and it's like, guys, don't worry. We're changing things up on The Walking Dead, and things are going to be better. Trust me. And then people watch The Walking Dead. It's like they took all the worst things, The Walking Dead, shoved it onto Fear, and now everything really seems to be working for me in The Walking Dead. Specifically the fact that these characters seem like real human beings, and they're speaking like real human beings.
I share some of your conspiratorial theories. Some. Okay. I think what the larger thing here is the show tends to shine when the characters have business, have something to do, and it shines in spurts where there are chapters, where the first 6 or 7 episodes of Fear last season, pretty strong overall, right?
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, pretty strong. Let's see. I want to almost wait, because fool me twice, fool me once, right? It's 2 episodes in here. Andrew Lincoln is gone. Episode 5?
6, I think.
6. So let's see. So let's give it time.
I know, that's really my biggest concern, because it's I'm super jiving on this, and I feel like all the characters finally feel like they're, like you said, doing something, and they all have a purpose and a point, and knowing that it's all going to come to an end in 4 episodes where Rick leaves, and I don't know when Maggie's leaving, but I don't know, especially because these first 2 episodes are so front loaded with Rick and Maggie. it's really going to feel like there's a glaring hole once those two characters are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very scary to think about.
Right, and these are such good actors just in general.
Yeah.
Just in general. And the presence that they have on camera, and the rapport and chemistry that they have with their fellow cast members. I mean, it is an ensemble show, but I mean, goddamn, those two take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, talking about the ensemble, like, that was always the biggest problem for me. And the first episode, I had issues because I felt like they were giving characters lines just to give them lines. This second episode, I really felt like all of the additional characters that we saw were serving a purpose. And I feel like they've finally been able to, like, hone in on what these secondary characters need to be. I don't feel like we're ever going to see a Terra-focused episode ever again. Hopefully. I don't know. That's how I feel now. It's like Terra has her role, Rosita has her role, and they're not carrying a plot point. They're part of a greater plot point. They serve a purpose within that plot point rather than being the plot point themselves.
Sure.
And that's the way it works for this show.
I mean, I agree, and it's actually really nice to see Alana Masterson just having the time of her life with that little bit, that bit of business that she's given, with the walkies and communicating with Mother Goose back and forth, but that's all going to change very soon here, and they're going to be asked, I imagine, in a very real way, to fill the space for Cohan and Lincoln. And I'm, as much as I am enjoying, I feel like I need to enjoy right now a whole lot.
Yeah, all right, so maybe I spoke too soon when I said there would never be a Terra-focused episode ever again.
I mean, dude, yeah, because who else? Who you got?
See, but this is what sucks, because this is how it works. This is how it works perfectly. When you have your 5 main characters, your series regulars, and then you have a few of these recurring characters in the background. You still like it. They're part of the plot, but they're never the focus is on them. Maybe they're part of like a subplot where Daryl leads it or Carol leads it, whatever. It's just where these trying to make even the little components of Eugene in this episode, I was ready to kill myself. I cannot stand that character anymore. I thought they would tone him down. Because I know the general feedback for Eugene was just like, the shit he says makes no sense. Trying to understand one of my greatest frustrations in this episode was trying to catch on to what he was saying, and unless I watch it 15 times over and decipher every single fucking word, to me it's really hard to catch the plot points there. And there was a lot of them. They have a pretty lengthy conversation about 4 different things, and if you weren't listening or paying attention or watching it 5 times over, you probably missed all of it.
Yeah, I don't know if the writers just can't help themselves.
They can't.
Who's written this episode? We have David Leslie, Johnson, McGoldrick, and Geraldine and Noah as a staff writer, a couple executive story editors as well. Eddie Gulazin and Vivian C. Guys, I literally don't know what's coming out of his mouth.
No.
And the all witty banter aside, I don't know how Grimes as a character doesn't just stop and yes or no.
The hilarious part is that Rick responds to him instantly, he doesn't even have to think about what he's saying.
Right. I don't understand. It's not a specific Eugene language. I understand the words might mean a certain thing, and in the right sort of situation, they're both referential and symbolic. I guess wham bam water dam. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So what was that? That was one of the that was one of the main plot points. It's I think he has concerns. One of my issues with these 2 episodes is they keep mentioning things a year and a half has passed, and obviously we haven't seen we don't know anything that's going on. And now they're using lingo terms that they came up with in everyday conversations and it's leaving us as the viewers trying to figure out like what exactly they're talking about. Like naming the herds Horatio and Margaret and never like explicitly like saying like those are the names of the herds and we like came up with those. Like that's hard for a viewer to follow along because they're having conversations where the viewer has no context for that conversation.
So, what? Two things. One, I agree that it is a little hard for the average viewer, I think, to pick that up. I did pick up that when they're using those names, it makes sense within the context of the story that they've named them something. Second thing, water dam is a trench basically dug around concrete. It allows for water flow around something so it can dry. So it's almost a method, like if you'd have to, oh God, you've got to Google everything Eugene says, but what, and maybe you don't want to do that if you're trying to enjoy a show. But what they're basically trying to do is water dam the herds around and away, so the bridge can finish.
Okay. So literally when he's having this conversation with Rick, he's not talking about legitimate levees or anything like dams or anything.
He might not be. He might not be.
Oh my fucking God. I thought like somehow, some way they were like slowing the water or something with like levees that they were building up, and they were basically saying that they have a couple days left before the levees can't hold the water anymore based off of like buildup of water.
But that's not how that's not even how a levee works. A levee is on banks to prevent over the flow of a floodplain. Like you prevent like city flooding from a river with levees. You don't, if you hear the any retelling of Katrina, like when the levees broke.
The levees broke.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
So then what the fuck is he talking about?
The great mystery. Tune in next week when we decipher what Eugene is talking about.
And I watched it twice. That's the sad part. I watched it twice, and I honestly did not have it in me to like remotely try to figure that out. I guess it wasn't that important to the overall story or whatever. But the average viewer who watches it once is not going to pick up any of that shit.
No.
So whatever. But I think part of the other important part of that conversation is they talk about quite a few of the saviors have walked off in the matter of a month. So basically they have a bit of a revolt on their hands in a way, because the saviors are just piecing out one by one.
They've got deserters.
They have deserters, which we later find out might not be, or they're deserters, but they're also totally MIA because they never actually make it back to the sanctuary,
right,
according to Al, which he says is weird because they have family. And they wouldn't just desert like their wife and kids or whatever, and so these people just straight up have gone missing and no one knows where the fuck they are.
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing, possibly to the end of the episode, maybe. What do you think it's foreshadowing?
I mean, it feels like it's some Whisperers early nonsense.
Well, I mean, at the end of the episode, Justin, after being sent wherever the hell he was sent by Rick, he comes across people in the woods that, he's like, yo, guys, like, I almost killed you or whatever. I almost, whatever, Wally popped you. And, and then something happens to him. You can't really tell if he's killed or if he kind of like whooshes forward, and I don't really know whether that was him being killed or captured or what it was. I guess I was kind of under the impression that it was possibly missing saviors whoever these deserters are that walked off, maybe they're trying to stir up some kind of like revolt or something.
Oh.
I have no idea if that's actually... I also went to the Whisperers, but I feel like that's almost too obvious. And the way Justin says, like, he recognizes, whoever this person is, he recognizes them. Because he says, I almost killed you, or what the hell are you doing, blah, blah, blah. He's not like, oh my God, don't hurt me, or I don't know who the fuck you are, or he doesn't act like a Whisperer wears, like, the zombie face or whatever. He doesn't look like he's coming across a zombie in that scene.
No, or he might be coming across a face he recognizes.
A dead face he recognizes?
It's dark. You're like,
hey, that's a fun little twist. Like, those 6 saviors were killed and now people are wearing their faces.
Yeah.
Hey, that's kind of creepy. I like it.
Right, I dig. You heard it here first.
You should write that. You should write for this show. No, that was good. All right. I mean, that's kind of all that happened in that whole Eugene scenario that I kind of wanted to break down since it's a bit of a clusterfuck. Oh, and food is getting slimmer, and he talked about fucking blending up ketchup and cucumbers to make this gazpacho or something.
I hope that was just ad-libbed and no one wrote that down on a piece of paper.
Dude, the more I think back to like the previous 2 seasons, the more I'm just like, oh my god, that was like total shit. Like, remember like he's eating like fucking mac and cheese and sardines or whatever.
Right.
This shit is just ridiculous. So bad. I'm like so pleased with Angela Kang. I can't even take it. And it's only 2 episodes so far. So
it's only 2 episodes.
I know, but man, she's working with what she's got.
And what she has right now, at least for these 2 episodes, is a full deck. We'll see what happens.
I'm kind of fangirling over Daryl a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, listen, I like Norman Reedus knuckling up and getting shit done. Okay.
Hell yes. It's really giving me a new respect for his character, even for him as an actor. I've been calling for the death of Daryl for seasons now, and it's because they have not given him anything. We hit max Daryl development in like season 4 maybe, and he has literally hasn't had a new plot point or storyline for 4 fucking seasons, and now finally he's speaking words again. And I like the conflict between him and Rick. I mean, they've been kind of buddy for so long. I think it's nice that he's kind of like the voice of dissent in this entire situation. Like, Rick, you're not listening to me. I've tried to tell you this over and over again, and you just choose to live in your bubble and focus on what you want, and you don't give a shit about what any of the rest of us want.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's interesting to have Daryl defined in kind of the negative space of Rick Grimes' decision making. Mm-hmm. You know, he's really able to take shape in solid form around Rick's like, we're going to go this way. And then you immediately see Daryl like peel off of that. Like, no, I don't think you understand. I'm an outside cat. I don't think you really get it. That the world as it was almost like to my liking, kind of in a way. Like you hear him in previews, and I don't know if he said this line yet. I don't think he has, but like when we were just that small group, just us, like we could do anything we wanted. Mm-hmm. That was Daryl almost at his happiest.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Daryl's not domesticated.
No. No, you still got to lay down paper for Daryl. Like, he can't, he ain't house trained. And I think that's what's appealing about him now as lawfulness starts to come into play, his innate sense of rebellion or kind of left of center, outrider type of thinking, is able to have something to play off of, and it actually is interesting to watch.
Sure. And it's like, this would have been an interesting plot point, like, carried through the season, because I'd love to see more of this conflict between, like, the conflicting ideologies between Maggie and Daryl and Rick. Kind of knowing that it's going to end kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's almost like premature in that way. Maggie kind of came around, in this episode. But Daryl doesn't feel like he's coming around anytime soon. So I think that would have been nice to see that carry through a little bit more, and maybe see that schism grow even farther between the two of them. And I don't know, maybe it grows into a larger kind of conflict between the two. I think that would be interesting, but we all know that's not going to happen now.
Well, and it looks like it's going to be a bit of a slower burn. I think for Daryl, you can see it's a come to a head type of moment, because it would have been very easy to fly off the handle here. When our boy Aaron, when his fate befalls him, it would have been easy for Daryl to go, hey, if you would have listened to me with the Saviors right when I told you, this shit would have, never happened. These events wouldn't have been gone to motion, and like, fuck you, I'm out of here. Right?
Yeah.
He's still loyal. and I think more loyal probably to Aaron and sitting by his friend, who he's actually put quite a bit of miles in with.
Yeah.
You know.
They shared spaghetti, man.
Hey, you don't just eat a man's spaghetti and then leave him to die.
He's eating a man's spaghetti for sure.
Faux show.
He's going to co-parent with Aaron.
Well, he's kind of going to need the help now.
Is this the last we see of Aaron now that he's going to cost them part of their CGI budget?
Probably.
Every scene we see Aaron in, his arm will be blocked by something, so they don't have to CGI anything out.
That's sorry, Ross.
We know they're cheap.
Yeah. That's why Rick has two hands.
Yes, indeed. Well, okay. So speaking of amputees, I guess.
Solid segue.
Why the scene with Eugene? One of the things I want to call out was that he focuses on a person. You don't see if it's a man or a woman with no fingers. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What was that supposed to be? Him like reflecting on last season when he rigged all the guns to essentially blow up in everyone's hands?
Yeah, I believe so.
Angela Kang again is doing a really good job from a show running standpoint of like really focusing on these minor details that no one would notice.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a nice little nod to the last season in this episode. They talk about the solar walkie-talkies, and I noticed when Jerry does his little thing where he whatever that siren thing is that he sets off, his walkie-talkie is on like a little solar panel. I thought that was cool. And then even in the scene with Maggie and Jesus in her office, those portraits that were painted, there's a portrait for like every one of her family members. So that one that the camera really focuses on is Glenn. But then you also have Herschel, you have Beth, and a couple other people in the background as well, which I thought was a really nice touch.
See, she's leaning into something that has been a weakness for The Walking Dead for several seasons, which is time, which is orientation of events, and she's able to, in very almost in the background, help the audience discover the passage of time. Those fingers gone. It's a helpful reminder of the lasting implications of what Eugene has done and what the cost is of his actions. And it also, they're healed. So we know that there's time passage. We know that those paintings are up and those don't happen overnight.
Yep.
Right?
Look at you. Time heals all wounds.
Well, or it just leaves stubs.
Yeah, stubs. Healed stubs. No. And I mean, it's nice that like Eugene as a character focuses on that too,
Right.
Like, shows that his wheels are still turning. He's still thinking about it. Maybe later down the line we could hear a little bit about his thoughts and his feelings if he's going to speak in English, but if he's not, I don't care to think.
Right.
I don't care to hear any of his thoughts.
And I think that's fine, because what you're doing there is you're showing that the character has an interior life. Mm-hmm. Right, the lights are on inside. Cool, I got it. Now don't let him speak.
Ever again.
Ever.
Why couldn't Eugene lose his tongue? He just points. He just has a whiteboard and a marker.
All you hear, Eugene, what happened? Perfect.
Yes, that's the best Eugene. He just points. So one of the strong points of this episode, moving from episode 1 to episode 2, I thought was the fact that I feel like in a Gimple era show, this bridge being built would have spanned the entire half of the first the 9A of the season would have been this bridge being built. They actually decided to flash forward like a month after the first episode to the end of the bridge being built. So, we're hearing about the conflict that kind of occurred over the last month or so as the bridge was being built, but we don't actually have to have any episodes dedicated to that, which I thought showed a nice amount of self-awareness on the part of the writers and the directors and Angela Kang to not make it feel tedious in that way.
Right.
I thought you also had made the comment like, when the story has something centralized to focus on, like the building of the bridge and all the characters kind of operate around that, that's nice because the bridge still feels like something new and interesting to us as a viewer because it hasn't been beaten to death at this point.
Right. We're all doing a thing.
Yes, exactly. And we've only been doing it for one episode, and that's probably all we're going to be doing it on. So maybe next episode we might see a little bit of the bridge. I don't know.
We'll see.
What? I'm kind of confused still as to like what this bridge is actually connecting, because we see Michonne is able to get to the hilltop,
Yeah, but it just
by
takes
horseback.
Longer. Yeah.
Does it take long?
You notice
the point?
You notice that last couple seasons it was like 5 minutes till the hilltop, everything.
Yeah.
Right, and now it's like it's a day's ride back to Alexandria. You're welcome to stay the night. Just, you know what? I will. So that bridge being out, also you don't know what roads are then available because that bridge is out. So if you were trying to take trucks through something, if you're trying to do commerce and kind of large deliveries, you can't do it on perhaps the roads that are available.
Sure. I like it. And I like the fact that they're establishing some sort of specified distance between the communities because, like you said, it's been very not established throughout the last few seasons of how close these places actually are to each other. And now it sounds like they're not that close. So I hope anything they do moving forward, like one character doesn't magically get somewhere else in the matter of minutes. Now that they've established that it does take a significant amount of time to get from one place to another.
Right. Thank God, Angela Kang. Solid temporal work being done.
We'll see. We'll see if it sticks.
Fair.
But for now, I am happy. That is all that matters. Should we talk about some post-apocalyptic fellation?
Let's get into it.
So Anne, formerly known as Jadis, and Gabriel are apparently in a budding relationship. I will say, I like the fact that this show really seems to support interracial relationships. I feel like so many of the relationships on this show are interracial, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think there is I don't think there is a same race relationship on the show.
No, I mean, I think Aaron and Eric.
Sure.
But they had their own thing, so
right.
Kind of works out.
Like,
I like it.
No two cisgendered white people just hanging out, right?
Yeah. No, so I could appreciate that. But what are your thoughts between the two of them? I heard it caught a lot of people off guard. They were very surprised by it, but I kind of dug it.
I was definitely surprised, but this is Anne going I'ma get you. All right? I picked you. I love that milky eye.
Mm-hmm.
That's doing it for me. All right? I want to paint you like one of my French girls. I think the two, I think the lines that stand out to me are I'm Episcopalian and I have to be on watch. So watch. Oh, sweet Lord.
Yeah, I thought that was... The show doesn't do a lot of sex, so I thought it was kind of fun and refreshing that they actually incorporate it. People are actually having sex in this world. It's nice to know. People can still be attracted to each other. That's nice to know. I like the fact that they both kind of come from similar backgrounds, so it makes sense from that perspective that they would be into each other. Gabriel was obviously... he had his own issues with locking out his flock. And then, Jadis / Anne doesn't exactly come from a very clean background herself. Basically shooting Rick and, all that shit in the past. So I think those two together will help each other work out their own issues. I was interested that they got as much camera time as they did versus some of the other secondary characters on the show.
Right. Yeah. Super interesting pairing. I wanted, Gabriel just to say something nasty, go get the black trash cape or something, just put on the trash tarp, whatever.
It makes me wonder if something's going to happen with them, since they're getting so much screen time at the moment.
Enjoy this now. You're both going to die terribly. Enjoy.
Hey, you never know. Yeah. So ultimately, good on them. Worth mentioning. I liked it. We'll see what happens.
Hey man, listen. If you can get a little filet in the zombie apocalypse, you take it wherever you can find it.
Indeed. You take filet anywhere you can find it.
I've got one good eye. I'm in no position to turn any affection away.
Oh gosh, I do like Gabriel's new look. I'm not gonna lie. I like the hat. I like the milky eye. I think it all looks good.
I think that's a painful contact to wear for Seth Gillum. It's like heavy. You legitimately can't see out of that thing. So he's like legally blind, I think.
It works, right?
Yeah, for the art.
Yeah. Let's see. What else you want to talk about here? Should we talk about, Michonne pays a visit to Maggie. I thought, Maggie's storyline throughout this episode was definitely one of the stronger parts of the entire episode. Being the fact that we learned that Maggie has not provided the food that she promised to the Saviors because the ethanol delivery that she was promised has not arrived. From the sanctuary, which Michonne comes to explain. We don't know what happened to those people. They are also missing.
Right. And she kind of sticks to her guns in Gregory's will is almost done a little bit here.
What do you mean? Gregory
was very much like Hilltop first in his rhetoric to set off the events that ultimately led to his hanging. But Maggie's kind of taken some of that to heart a bit in terms of her thinking that, you're right, I should be taking care of my people. And I have been a little too nice, and I do need to establish myself as an authority here, and an authority and somebody who's not a pushover in this growing sort of world that we're building. Mm-hmm. I understand that she's trying to walk that delicate balance. If I don't have ethanol, I can't plow the field. If I can't plow the field, I can't harvest the crops. If I can't harvest the crops, we all starve anyway.
Sure.
So I don't think she's wrong.
I don't think she's wrong either. Not at all. I mean, her biggest issue in this episode is the crop situation, and that kind of all comes down to Earl and his situation, right, being locked up and her not being able to. She can't use the farming equipment that requires gasoline, and she can't use the farming equipment that they got from the museum because Earl is now locked up. So she's kind of in a rock and a hard place, and why should she be giving up anything? Because in return, she's really not getting anything at this point from anyone.
Right. I mean, Hilltop in general is sort of the most successful community.
Yeah, she's killing it, man.
Right.
She got those fertile lands.
I got all the good soil.
Well, I love it. It's like she's such on easy street that she can be taming horses in her spare time.
Right. Which, I mean, let's be honest, is kind of dangerous work in and of itself. You could legitimately get kicked and die.
For real. We see what happens. Enid gets a little amputation happy.
Get the bone saw. Oh, God.
You don't want to be getting kicked off any horses and getting any minor fractures in your body, otherwise Enid's gonna be chopping off body parts.
Right.
So.
You really don't want to have that happen. But I like the self-investigation on the part of the character to really understand. I think Michonne puts it to her well, how much is enough time, and to keep somebody imprisoned, like Earl is imprisoned in the basement somewhere. A root cellar.
I think that is the root cellar.
Yeah, I think it might be a root cellar. That apparently the jail that he built, ironically, now he's occupying.
Which was one of my favorite lines of the entire episode,
right?
By the way.
But I love that scene so much because of what they both play very truthfully. I love John Finn, who plays Earl. I love his delivery. Yep. He's not maudlin. He is just, this is what I did, and I'm a remorseful, recovering alcoholic, and you know what, I had a weak moment, and it wasn't like I didn't have those thoughts. I had them. And I thought that was so a pretty powerful moment for that character to own that, and for him to listen. This is what it is. I don't expect your, forgiveness or, and then Maggie sort of calls him out on it a bit, like, did I make the right decision in not hanging you? Oh yeah, no, we're good. We're good. No. Appreciate it. Appreciate not being stretched. But the connection that she makes emotionally with his alcoholism from her background, and that, I mean, of course, Scott Wilson's passing hit me very hard when he's like, because my daddy had a drinking problem, and we know that about Herschel.
Yeah, I feel like the fact that Scott Wilson actually passed away in real life added even more emotional weight to all of these scenes.
Jesus.
And I was like a blubbering little baby.
It just, I mean,
watching all of them.
And I mean, Cohan leans into it. Her and the character lean into that, and it had such weight to it.
No, he wasn't dead at that point, was he?
No, but I mean, just the choice by the actor, like. It's odd sort of kind of intersection of events that like she's leaning into it. And now we have the context of Scott's passing.
Yeah. It was rough, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I like the one scene you called out where he basically, he admits to everything. He's not really asking for forgiveness. He's just saying, yeah, I did it. And like that I had it in me to do it. And where she asks him, well, did I make a mistake by not hanging you? And he says no. I think that's like a moment of self-awareness for her. And she's like, all the things that I had to do to survive, like on paper, make me look like a really fucking shitty person too.
Yeah.
And I've had plenty of moments of weakness, and I've been there and I've done that. But no one's ever been in the position to call me on my shit or lock me in a cell after I did it. And I think that probably ties into the reason why ultimately she lets him out, under supervision, obviously, but, kind of puts him on like a probationary period.
Sure. Because at the end of the day, he's got useful skills. Yeah,
man. Are there like... This might be a really dumb question. Actually, I'm not even going to ask it.
No. I demand it. No, you got to. You've got to now.
I'm like, is a blacksmith like a common job these days?
Well, he might not have been. I mean, they're calling him a blacksmith. He could have been a metal worker. He could have been a welder. Like, he could have been a lot of things.
All right. Obviously, there's no one making swords these days.
No, well, unless you work at like a Ren fair, sure.
Even that China's probably making that.
This is good Chinese steel. It bends. That's weird. Shouldn't bend like that.
I mean, I just thought it was kind of like a unique trait to kind of have. But I guess anyone could like learn anything. You seem to have a lot of free time in the apocalypse, so Enid learned how to be a doctor.
Well, I mean, they are, and I think that's an interesting subtext to this, is they are emphasizing apprenticeship.
Yes.
Right?
And I like that. Again, it's giving characters purpose. Enid is one of those characters that's been around for seasons now. We get little flashback episodes of her, but she's kind of been Carl's shadow throughout like the last couple of seasons, so it's nice to see her stand out on her own, and then kind of carve her own path in this world. And now she has a purpose. She had a big scene in this episode, obviously, and I hope they kind of develop that more. And it makes total sense. Like, after a year and a half, you have one doctor. Why is that one person not training other doctors? It was totally logical. Like, watching it back, I was like, this makes total fucking sense that they would have an apprentice. That way she could split the responsibility with I want to call him Saeed because I'm thinking of Lost. Sadiq. It all made sense, and it makes it feel like, okay, now she's not just a little kid, and we're not just watching her do dumb shit. Like, she's actually, plotting her own path forward and not playing second fiddle to Maggie or any other character.
Carve. Seb.
Oh, God, too soon?
I don't know. I guess let's ask Ross, like, hey, man. Carve.
Can you carve the turkey?
Yeah. Oh.
I just loved it. Like, it was so funny. Like, he comes right in. She looks at it for 5 seconds. She's like, "We must amputate." And you could tell she was just waiting to be able to amputate something.
You're like, aha! I kept a bone saw for seemingly no reason.
Rough first day on the job, that's for
Right?
sure.
Shit, man.
I love like how they send Sadiq back to the community because people have like the flu, and she gets to stay here to deal with like the people handling like 3-ton logs where the shit is probably definitely going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, how many people died building the Brooklyn Bridge? Like, this is a problem.
For real. So I thought it was funny that they left her ass behind to deal with all that shit. She's already given what's-her-face stitches, too.
Hey, man, she likes to cut and stitch. She comes by it naturally? I don't know.
This is going to be a new spin-off series. It's going to be like her torturing people. It's like Dexter, but with Enid.
Oh, what if we could do like a post-apocalyptic Enid doctor's office?
Yeah, how fun.
It'd be great. It'd be great.
I like it. All right, what else we got here tonight?
We haven't touched on the Negan.
Oh yeah, that was obviously. I like the fact that this whole episode was, I guess, essentially we'll call it narrated by Rick, by the fact that he starts the beginning of the episode and basically ends it, recanting this day, all the happenings to, Negan over the last couple of weeks as they're building this bridge. I like the fact that he's kind of gloating to Negan because he can, because obviously Negan's locked in a cell. But those two have such a good dynamic between the two characters. Like, Rick's able to take his cheap shots because he knows Negan can't do anything about it, but Negan goes for the low blow by essentially saying, hey, you're creating... I felt like Negan was almost echoing like fan sentiment with some of the shit he was saying. Your family's gone. Who you building this for? Because Carl's dead. Your bridge is a monument to the dead, basically. And I was like, oh my god, I feel like you're speaking for me. That was everyone's concern. Oh, Carl's dead. Now what?
Yeah.
And Negan says that.
Preach, JDM. Preach for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting because there was like a fan poll on the Talking Dead, which I finally watched for like the first time in like 2.
Is it because you knew you were coming on the podcast?
That's exactly right. I'm like, I got to get up, I got to get all this stuff. We did a fan poll and like it was like, what do you think Rick is doing in that scene? And I think gloating was like the thing that won. But of the 3 options, is Rick lonely? And I thought, now that's interesting. Because who can he really tell? Who can he really talk to about this in that way?
Michonne.
Nah.
Pillow talk.
Nah, not same. Not same. And why would he? No, I don't think so. Because it's not within... I don't think it's within his character to victory lap over and over again. I don't think it is. I think there's a certain... don't get me wrong, there is some like, haha, I'm building all this shit and I'm right. I am so convinced that I'm right. I'm going to keep coming down here and telling you that.
Yeah.
But you have to want to talk to a person to do that. You have to want to... People do what they want. You have to be, from a motivational perspective, have to want to do that. And self-satisfaction can't be the only real motivator.
I think you're right. They're probably taking part of this from the comics too, where in the comics, after this all happens, Carl is the one having these like intimate one-on-one conversations with Negan, and a part of it is due to the fact that Carl doesn't feel like Rick has time for him or doesn't really talk to him. So that would be kind of like an interesting component to, like you were saying, where he's lonely and he just wants someone to talk to.
Right.
So I think that kind of makes sense in that perspective. I didn't see it that way, but I'm coming over to your side now.
I submit to you an alternate reading of the interaction.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of like everything. I forget what the other option was on that Talking Dead poll. But I've got to believe the questions are asked because it was meant to be interpreted in those 3 different ways that they listed.
Yeah.
And they wanted to know how people felt was like where was it leaning towards the most, and I think it was pretty almost evenly split between the gloating and the he's lonely type of thing. So
Right.
I don't know. I wish I remember what the third one was, but I can't.
I can't remember. Yeah.
Oh well. All right. I think that's kind of it.
Right.
Oh, one thing I wanted to talk about was the scenes between Maggie and Jesus, where Jesus is basically trying to offer a second opinion in terms of how Maggie should handle Earl, and then also the food situation. In it, they talk about a letter from Georgie, which is that woman from last season with those two twins. All them. So apparently, Jesus makes a statement. Oh, Georgie wants you to go live there. Did you catch that?
Yeah. It was like join her, like what, on the road? You know?
Yeah. It was like join her, I guess, like wherever the fuck she is. I think she has to be in a centralized location or whatever. But I thought that was kind of interesting. That little like, call out, and obviously Maggie kind of shoots it down and it's like no. But knowing that Lauren Cohen is quote leaving the show open ended, it kind of makes it sound like she might take. People are saying, oh, well, she wouldn't leave Herschel, blah, blah, blah. But what if she took Herschel and went to go live with Georgie or wherever the fuck Georgie is?
Yeah, it seems to be like a pretty obvious bit of foreshadowing that.
Yeah.
Right? That may be the way that Cohan's, character that Maggie leaves for the short term here.
It's just like one of those things, though. It's like, I don't understand why she would. I mean, what would be her motivation for wanting to leave?
I don't know. We have to find out what happens to Rick.
I hope they don't try like a guilt thing.
I've got to go on walkabout.
I'm so guilty over killing Gregory. I shouldn't have done it. Blah, blah, blah. Or maybe she's like, look, I'm doing such a good job here. Obviously, she wouldn't say it like that. But, I'm doing such a good job here. I was able to kind of figure this all out, and now I want to go out and help other communities do it as well. I don't know. Who would she put in charge? I don't know. Jesus? Maybe. Daryl? Maybe. I don't fucking know. But I'm having a hard time trying to figure out how exactly they're going to make this work. But
right.
I guess we'll see. And other than that, I mean, I really like the kind of subplot they had going around the demolition and the small herd that attacks the group. I thought all of those little scenes that kind of led up to it with like Rosita and a rat blowing up the rocks and Tara redirecting the herd and all of that. I thought that was fun. And then overall, I thought just the whole zombie killing fight was honestly pretty cool. Looked awesome. I was actually excited to see Daryl. Daryl's like super cool with the crossbow thing always seems super lame and stupid to me. I'm like, that's not a very practical weapon in this scenario because it takes so long to reload. I love his like dual akimbo kind of knife situation going on. I think that's pretty badass.
Right, he whipped those out. And I'm like, yeah, get it.
Yeah, I know. I literally I squealed. I was so excited.
Mr.
I was
Dixon.
like, who am I? Yeah, I was like, "Oh, Mr. Dixon, put your giant knives away."
Due to Claire, I have the vapors. Done. Fully erect.
Fully
Fully
indeed.
present and accounted for.
I feel like every podcast with us, we have to at least make one penis reference.
Sorry, we had the fellatio at the top half, and now we gotta finish.
Yeah, indeed. I'm talking about Morgan being a limp dick. Oh gosh. Yeah, so that's kind of it.
It really is.
I think we covered all the main points. Oh, one last thing is the helicopter. That seems to be back in a big way. Well, maybe not a big way, but it will be in a big way.
Right, a big enough way that we're supposed to still be thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit annoyed, honestly, that they brought that back as a plot point. I feel like they could have just let that go. And like, are we supposed to? We obviously don't know what's occurred with the helicopter and Jada and for the last year and a half. But if they try to bring it back, like Jadis has not mentioned this to anyone over the last year and a half, and she has like this working knowledge of what this helicopter is and what it could mean for everyone. Like, I think that's gonna feel very contrived.
Yeah. Guys, there's a helicopter that sometimes follows me that I have a relationship with that just forgot,
Yeah, I just didn't tell you. It's Taka from Fear the Walking Dead.
Oh my god, please let it be Taka.
Taka and Daniel. They just get off. And Madison. Madison's charred, crispy body.
Madison Clark just hops out the chopper like, I've come to free you all.
How cool would it be if like Madison was Alpha, the leader of the Whisperers, and she doesn't even wear a zombie mask. Her face is just like all melted and shit. That would be so cool.
That would be so. God damn it.
Sorry, that's never gonna happen.
No.
Lay sigh. Oh Lord. All right. I think that about covers it. Let's do some episode ratings. So last week, Ryan rated the newest episode, A New Beginning, a 7.5. I rated it a 7.991, and Dennis rated it a 7. John, what do you want to rate this episode 2, The Bridge?
The Bridge, man. I think I'm going to keep it in the 7s. I think I'm going to go a 7.743.
Wow. I think that might be the highest rating you've ever had the honor of bestowing on The Walking Dead.
I think that might. At least, on this show, yeah.
Yeah. I thought this episode was actually better than the premiere. I thought some of the plot points from last episode were a little contrived, like the whole glass breaking thing. I thought that was kind of silly because there was ways that they could get around even crossing that glass. I just don't like Greg Nicotero as a director. I don't think he does that great of a job. But I thought all of it made sense. All of it worked. I saw some people saying the log rolling scene was contrived. I thought it all made perfect sense. They tried to redirect the herd. That guy Justin fucked it up, which I'm not entirely sure why he was even in charge of that, by the way.
Right?
Like, wasn't he doing other things, like building the bridge? Why is he in charge of sounding the siren?
Yeah, he seems to have much more of like a pound nails type of mentality than like a handle the direction of the herd that might kill us all mentality.
Totally agree. But that being said, I thought this episode was actually stronger than the premiere. I'm going to put it in the 8s, the low 8s, like 8.174. And I've heard really good things about episode 3 too.
Ooh.
Some of like the reviewers I followed, they got the first 3 episodes of this season, and they said each episode gets better and better for the first 3. So who knows?
Hey.
Who knows? All right, I know you are on a time crunch today, so probably wrap up the show.
Right.
And we could, we'll do feedback next week when Dennis and Ryan are back in, I'll say the studio. We don't have the studio, but are back on the show. And yeah, so what's next week's episode called? Let's see, episode 3, season 9, The Walking Dead. I should have been prepared to do this, but I am not. Next week's episode is called Warning Signs. It says Rick's vision for the future is threatened by a mysterious disappearance that divides the work camp where the communities are building a bridge. All right, so I guess we're going to get more details about all the saviors that have been disappearing, so that should be pretty interesting.
Dun, dun, dun.
I'm excited to find out. I really don't think it's the Whisperers because I don't think they're going to get introduced until a little bit later.
Yeah, it might be a time jump thing.
Yeah, I think it's a plan by the saviors to kind of create more conflict within the groups. That's my guess. I don't know how that would actually work out, but whatever. Doesn't matter. Any thoughts based on that synopsis?
I don't know, man. I'm for once I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm interested in what happens, which is a nice change from the previous iteration of this universe that we've been forced to ride along on.
Yeah. My faith is renewed, and we'll see how long it can last before I feel disappointed.
Yeah, see, right. See, guys, we're not all negative. We want to like it. It's just they don't give us very many opportunities.
I mean, frankly, like Dennis, Ryan, and myself, we've been saying that for the last 3 seasons. Like, you can call us haters all we want, but this show has been complete and utter fucking shit for the last 3 seasons.
Right.
These last 2 episodes have been good. So we're going to say they've been good, and I'm going to tell people they've been good. Don't worry. I'll get your ratings back up.
Just put you on my back and walk you up the Nielsen ratings.
Yeah, ratings have not been doing well regardless.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's a little too late for The Walking Dead, but we'll see. We will see. I'm sure they'll get sky-high ratings. I wonder if they're going to officially announce, they never officially announced what episode Rick was going to die in. We know because, we follow things. But I'm surprised they don't announce next week will be Rick's final episode and trying to get 1 million people to watch it. Well, a million bajillion people to watch it. Break that 17 million. You think they could break that 17 million?
I think they might. I think for his final episode, I think they'll get close. I'm more concerned about the episode after.
Yeah. Well, what are they? They're pulling in around 7 mil an episode now.
Yeah.
So they would basically have to tack on 10 million people. But if they're not specifically announcing when that episode is occurring, I don't know if they'll get it. But we'll see. Mm-hmm. Especially if it's just randomly in the middle of the season, which it seems like it's going to be. Not a mid-season finale.
Right.
So people won't expect it. It'll be killing off Nick.
Oh.
I know. Sorry. Opening up old wounds. All right. That's all we got. If you guys want to join the conversation, we haven't read feedback. We still have half our feedback from last week and no feedback from this week that we read. So if you want to send in feedback for, the premiere of this episode or episode 3, you could do so by emailing twdepodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/fandomfound, or submit feedback even by Twitter @fandomfound. And if you enjoy listening to the podcast and want to subscribe to the feed, you could do so by going to fandomfound.com/subscribe. That's where you'll find subscribe options for Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify even, because we fancy. We do like that, Mm-hmm. And that's it. So, John, any final thoughts? I don't know when we're going to have you back, but it always kind of just pops up randomly.
So I get a random text hey, are you free tomorrow night sometime?
It'll probably be sooner than you expect.
Yeah, right.
So.
I'll just keep watching.
Just keep watching and keep your thoughts.
Yep.
Keep your thoughts going, all right?
Okay.
All right. So until next time, guys, I'm Sebastian.
I'm still John.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Walking Dead Enthusiast Podcast by Fandom Found. See you next week.